Okay, hello everyone. My name is Zen Honeycutt. I am the founding executive director of Moms Across America, and our mission is to educate and empower mothers and others with actions and solutions to create healthy communities. And this is our Monday night Moms Connect call. It's March 23rd, and we have a lot of news to cover that has happened in the past 4 or 5 days around the area of 5G. And I know everybody's very focused on the COVID-19 virus and what's happening there. Unfortunately, what's happening is that telecom companies and many other corporations are trying to find a way to make money from this situation. They're trying to find ways to forward their agenda through this situation. And I'm sure you've seen the requests from many corporations that they want, buyouts, they want bailouts from the federal government. Well, what the telecom industry wants is to get their technology into our cities and towns and schools as fast as possible. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is because they face a lawsuit in the District 9 courts, which could upend their the rules that they have been enjoying for the past close to 20 years. 1996. Yeah, close to 20 years. That have allowed them basically carte blanche to install whatever technology they want in cities and towns. And that's because in 1996, the Telecommunications Act was signed that allowed them to install whatever they want, wherever they want. Basically, they took away the local municipalities' rights to regulate and to disapprove of having 5G installed in their towns and cities. I'm sorry, I'm not feeling great, so my train is not working really super fast tonight. But so it basically took away the rights of the local municipalities to say no to having telecommunications, wireless telecommunications installed. And they did this because they were able to get this because they convinced the federal government that everybody needs cell phones, and that in emergency situations, we have to have cell phones. We have to be able to get to people and call people and all that kind of stuff, right? So the local municipalities' rights to refuse the installation of wireless telecommunication facilities was taken away. So since then, any local town or municipality that does not want telecommunications has basically been threatened with lawsuits or told that we could sue you. And so they've just said, okay. And so cell towers have gone up near schools, and they have gone up, near people's homes. And there's been some situations where cell towers, right now, there's one 12 feet outside of Cheryl Hogan's house in San Francisco. And she happens to be the daughter of one of the men who invented the radiation chip that goes, the microwave radiation chip that goes into devices. She knew all about it, all of the science about it. She brought the information to the San Francisco City Council. They completely ignored her. And now she has a fast growing tumor. She just got an operation. She's in rehab. She's going to go home soon. Last I heard, it was this week. And she's been asking, and her friends have been asking to have that cell tower turned off. It's 12 feet outside of her bedroom. She will not be able to heal the way that she should be able to heal if that cell tower is on, because there is science that shows that EMF, electromagnetic frequencies, do compromise the immune system. Now, electromagnetic frequencies is an overall category of different types of frequencies, like microwave radiation and radio frequencies, right? And X-rays is way up on the other side, which is ionizing. We're talking about non-ionizing. But the non-ionizing, they claim is not harmful, but of course we all know that it is. So, yes, so Wi-Fi, 5G, smart meters, cell towers, electrical devices, they all do weaken your immune system. And so There are people like Cheryl Hogan who have been directly impacted. There's also science to show that these EMFs cause brain tumors. This is what we believe, and Joe Biden's son said is what killed him. One of the Kennedy's sons died of a brain tumor. He said it was also due to a cell phone use. So there's 29 people that have been trying to sue the FCC now for a couple years, many years, due to brain tumors from cell phones. And so this is a very serious situation, and there are thousands of studies, some say 10,000 studies, showing that electromagnetic frequencies, microwave radiation, radio frequencies are harmful. And I've learned so much about this over the past month or so. I am completely convinced. I did not want to believe it before. I did not want to believe that, using my cell phone or using my laptop was causing any type of harm at all. I really did not want to believe it. And I didn't feel like I had the brain space, like the energy to conceive of that. But I've learned a lot of information recently, and it really is harmful. And we also received a Safe and Sound Pro. Hey, let me get it. It looks like this from a funder, and this is the best one out there. And with this device, we were able to see that when your cell phone is on, I have mine wired right now, it's with an Ethernet cable. When your cell phone is on and you're watching a video, you're getting 2.5 million microwatts of radiation out of it. More than 10 is harmful, 1,000 is considered extreme. So these cell phone devices really are damaging us, and laptops too, very high, hundreds of thousands of times higher than what's been considered harmful by microwatts. So anyway, I'm digressing, but I'm just explaining a little bit about the electromagnetic frequencies, about radio frequencies and microwave radiation. They do weaken the immune system, and this is a very serious issue. So the news that has happened, I'm going to screen share some screens. The news that has happened in the past few days is that Children's Health Defense, and let me go to their website. We've also put it on our website. Oh, I'm sorry, the link is not here anymore. It used to be right here. Children's Health Defense has announced that there is or has shared with us that Governor Newsom's office made an announcement saying, with the schools closed across the state and teachers struggling to implement online and alternative learning programs, the governor has also asked for an expansion of technology investments for schools, an increase in Title I funding for schools with a high concentration of poverty, broadband internet upgrades, grants for teachers to adapt to digital age instruction. Now, to clarify, broadband internet, wireless and wired, it includes wireless and wired infrastructure. And unfortunately, California schools have been using wireless rather than safe wired networks. And therefore, we have a good basis to suspect that the announcement refers to wireless systems. And that's not just suspecting. I mean, this is what other sources have been saying as well, that they intend to get in more 4G and 5G. And this has happened in schools. There have been cell towers put up around schools for 4/5G, maybe not 5G yet, but definitely, macro towers and 4G towers. And children have been coming down with cancer, teachers have been coming down with cancer, and they have been protesting about these cell towers near schools. Now, what I want to say about this issue is that it's not on this article, but I have had confirmation from I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I don't want to share the email itself, but I have received confirmation from a school principal that said that their school will not be upgrading or expanding internet on their site. However, I have heard that some larger school districts are deploying mobile hotspots across the neighborhoods. This was on a webinar with other school districts regarding spring break. So there are schools that are planning on installing, hotspots during spring break. We just don't know which ones those are. This school principal did not share that with me. I have asked for further updates, and I hope I will get them. So that's why in our on Children's Health Defense and Moms Across America and 5G Free California, we have made some calls to action. And those calls to action, there's two of them. One of them is to please copy and paste this letter that we wrote, or you can write your own, but this one is very useful. Asking him, please do not, this is for Governor Newsom, please do not deploy 5G/intensified wireless installations in our school during quarantine. This is not exactly, it might be unclear, but it is, increase the intensity of wireless in our schools during that time. So here's the sample letter, and it says, you can read this later, but I want to point out that there are many examples of harm, and the letter includes some of those. I think it's very useful that it calls out his own, in one movie, he was filmed calling out the telecompany's fraud. He himself knows what's going on. Also, that the recent National Toxicology Program showed clear evidence that this radiation causes cancer and breaks DNA. This is our government, folks. A $25 million study was done on 2G and 3G. And this is what 4G and 5G is built on, right? It's a combination of the technology from 2G, 3G, 4G. It's all built on it. And this $25 million study showed clear evidence that radiation causes cancer and breaks the DNA. And then the Ramazzini study done after that, and the National Toxicology Program study showed that it causes this breaking of the DNA and causing cancer at levels that the FCC allows, so that at the highest levels, right? So what the telecommunications people will say when they're in their city councils, and this study comes up, they'll say, oh, that those levels are far above what we're normally exposed to. Well, this is what the FCC allows. This is what they're allowed to use. And there is a city like Simi Valley, I believe it is, that found that levels were being emitted that were above what the FCC allowed. So that could happen if a cell tower is instructed outside of your students, on their campus. They could emit levels that are even higher than what the FCC allows. And then the Ramazzini did a study showing, and I believe that's in this link when you go here, did a study showing, confirming what the National Toxicology Program study found, but at levels that are found on street level. So in normal everyday levels were also found to cause cancer and break DNA. And the letter also shows that the California Department of Public Health, this is the only state, by the way, that has published guidelines admitting that peer-reviewed scientific studies show evidence that this radiation may cause DNA damage, reproductive harms, cancer, and learning disabilities, among other effects. And then the California Medical Association passed a resolution calling on the FCC to update its health guidelines. This was back in 2014, folks. The FCC has not updated any guidelines. Their guidelines do not include health or the environment at all. So when a representative from Verizon or AT&T gets up at your city council and says that these small cell facilities, these 4/5G towers, are safe according to FCC guidelines, it's complete malarkey, folks, because the FCC guidelines do not include health or environmental safety, right? They just don't. So it's not based on science. It's not based on reality. So they can say that because what they plan on emitting, right? The power would be under FCC guidelines usually, and they can say that's what's going to be emitted. And so they can say that technology is completely safe according to FCC guidelines, and they'll use the word standards, but they're not standards. They're just guidelines. They're not even laws, and yet our cities are being told that it's like a law. It's a restriction and a rule, and they're not. So, and lastly, we want to not lastly, but we also want to point out that a government code, this gives a special exemption from mandatory approval of wireless applications for wireless telecommunication facilities on fire department facilities. That means that they cannot install them on fire department facilities. And this was passed out of concern of firefighters' exposure to harmful radiation. The American Firefighters Association has passed a moratorium, has declared a moratorium on not putting small cell units or wireless telecommunication facilities on their premises at all. So if they don't want it, why should we want it for our kids? This is a very strong point that you can use when you talk to your school district. Also, the studies have shown that this wireless technology adversely affects the immune system. I think this should be at the top, considering what's going on right now. But anyway, at least it's in the letter, so it's here. So these are really important points. Does anybody have any questions about these aspects of harm from wireless telecommunication facilities? You have to unmute if you, oh, let me look at maybe you have questions in the chat box. Okay, so not so much right now, but I will look at this. I'll look at your comments in just a minute. Okay, so we have a letter to share, and then we also ask that you email your school district and ask them if they're planning on putting this up. Okay, and that information is right here. And we really would like you to cut and paste this section and ask this, because if you ask just, do you have any plans to put 5G in our school? They can do just like what my city council, not city council, my city commissioners did, was they can say, we have no plans for 5G right now, because what they do have plans for is an upgrade, right? Or they have plans for 4G, or they have plans to put in an antenna, but they don't technically have plans for 5G, right? They can technically say correctly that that's what they're doing. And it's not necessarily 5G, but 5G is coming. And even if it's not being installed right now, it needs to be built on 4G. So they have to get 4G small cell facilities in first, and then later on they'll upgrade. So you need to ask the question, are they intending to do any wireless technology upgrades during the school shutdown? Specifically, will our school have any upgraded Wi-Fi systems and any more new antennas or small cell facilities? And small cell facilities is what is needed for 5G, okay? That's what's needed for 4G and 5G. Any of those small cell facilities installed during the break? If so, which schools and which types of technology changes? So I found that with my school district, my kids go to 2 different school districts. One I found out information on, the other one I did not. The one that I contacted today, I couldn't email them. I couldn't find any email. I wanted to call them, but I knew I wouldn't get an answer back in writing. They would just say something over the phone, and I don't want something over the phone. I want something in writing. So all they had was a fax. So I faxed them. I have a program called Faxage that I pay like $3.99 a month for, because I was faxing the Sacramento about SB 276 like crazy, right? So I have this program called Faxage, and you can just write, a document up on Google Docs or on Word or whatever, download it as a PDF, and you can fax it. So I recommend that if you can only fax people, then that you do that, and put your email on there and ask for a response. So that's what I asked them. We also want you to state the following. We want you to tell them that you're interested in being kept informed should the school decide to introduce such installations, okay? You have the right to know that if they're going to install those, just like you have the right to know if they're going to spray any toxic chemicals. You can call and email your school and say, I want to know if anything's going to be sprayed at my kid's school. Please tell me what it is and when it's happening, and all of that, okay? You have a right to know that. So you also want to state the following: considering the clear evidence of potential harm to our children from this radiation, we do not consent to any further expansion of wireless emitting devices in our California schools. Education Code 51101A7 grants the right for parents to ensure that the school environment for their child is safe. Exposing children to this radiation, especially over the objection of the parents and children, directly violates the school's duty to provide a safe environment and our right to ensure that they do. we ask for you to cease and desist any further installations. The radiation batters the children and violates their civil rights and our parental rights. And this is important to put in there, because as soon as they start seeing education codes, they're gonna be like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. This is what I believe that one of my schools used recently when there was mold found in the modular, the buildings. The parents got together and said, listen, you have a responsibility to provide a safe environment. We don't care how much it costs, or how long it takes or whatever. And they finally got the school to remediate, to tear down some walls and to rebuild, because we have a right to have a safe environment for our schools, our children. So, but what we also ask you to do is don't just send this email off. Please CC ca.safe.children@childrenshealthdefense.org. They've set up a special email so that even if they get like 1,000 emails, it doesn't bug somebody. And they're just going to count up how many emails they get and see how many people are actually contacting their, their school districts and also Gavin Newsom. So we want you to do both, please. Please CC Children's Health Defense, and we're in collaboration on this project, and I will let you know too how many. This morning, they posted last night, and this morning they already had 150 letters. So that was great. I don't know how many it is now. And then we also want you to let them know, or let us know at this email, what their response is. We really like to know, if LA School District or, Sacramento or different, which different school districts are planning on installing 4/5G. That's an important public notice, information. We could put that list on our website and let people know about that. So does anybody have any questions or anything to report about? Let's see. Okay, so I'm looking at your comments now. So you're being told, Jamie, that Governor Newsom has no intent for allowing 5G in schools. This is information that's coming from someone with a direct line to his office. That's great. They may be changing their, that he may be saying that now and wasn't saying that before. I believe that Robert Kennedy, he's one of our advisors, for Children's Health Defense, has reached out. I'm not, if he had a response, I'm sure he would let us know. But I think now that people are contacting them, they will be more likely to respond. So I think that's great that somebody has already heard back something from them. I sent them my letter I think I sent this letter yesterday or the day before. So, they are just now getting this. We just heard about all of this on Sunday, or was it Saturday? I don't know. All I know is I worked all day on this yesterday. So we just heard about it, and we haven't had a chance to actually, be in communication with them. So, so Jody, let me see. So Jody, this is from Jody Nelson. You're saying that, okay, that she contacted. Okay, well, if anybody wants to email me afterwards with any communication, then we will, thank you, Mandy. Yes, you can also contact Mandy Jacob from the California Reform Issues, and we can work together on this. And if somebody does have a communication from him, we will surely get it out. And we appreciate if people are communicating with him. The fact is that he is a dedicated father, and he cares about the safety of his children and the children in California. And there's a very good chance that he could turn this around. However, there's an enormous amount of pressure from telecommunications companies. And we have, people that have said that he wants to run for higher office, and it will be very difficult for him to do that if he does not, do what very powerful and huge companies want him to do, which is the same thing for any politician. Most politicians are getting funded by huge corporations, and they need that money to run for office, which I think is the biggest problem in American politics right now, is that you can't run for office unless you have millions of dollars. I think if we got rid of that problem, then our politicians wouldn't be getting funded, and it would actually be working for us instead of corporations. So, okay, so 5G for you, Santa Barbara is here. That's great. Thank you so much for being on. My email is zen@momsacrossamerica.org, zen@momsacrossamerica.org, so you can email me information about it. And so we are interested in knowing about other school districts outside of the US. If we can learn from what you're doing, absolutely. I appreciate that. You know, for instance, Daphne Takover from Children's Health Defense is an Israeli citizen, actually, and she got Israel to be the first country to state that their schools could only their children could only have Wi-Fi or use, you know, the internet for a very short time during the day. And so they have really limited their technology, you know, and Wi-Fi exposure in Israel within the schools. And that was the first country to do that due to her efforts. So yes, we're very interested in learning what's going on in other countries. But right now we're mostly focused on California because we've heard this from Gavin Newsom, right? He is saying, we want to upgrade technology during this spring break time. He's calling for money for it from the government. And what he is directing that money to go toward technology upgrades. And right now in this current day and time, the technology upgrades mean 4G to 5G. That's just what's happening in the world. And so there's no reason to think otherwise. You know, if he said we're going to upgrade technology with fiber optics, then we would be thrilled. But that's not what he said, right? So we have to be vigilant about what's going on, and we need to find out this information. Okay, so I'm going to screen share some other images. 1 second. Okay, some other images. We want to talk about some other things. Now, everybody has seen the, or not everybody, but a lot of people have seen a video going around with a person who sent a text to a man named Daniel and said that they are going to be installing 4/5G during spring break, and I'm on a school board and I have access to this information, and you should know about this. They're using the COVID-19 shutdowns in order to get 5G into schools. And I'm not sharing that because I don't know that it's a credible enough source, and I wasn't going to talk about it originally, but then I saw this article and it really got me mad, and I thought, hang on a second, that person could be a credible source or may not be a credible source, but we need to use that question, right? I don't want to say it's a tip because it might not be true, I don't know, but we want to use that question: is our school district installing 4 or 5G or doing upgrades to wireless during this school break or not? And this is because this is what's going out. We are being prepped by the media for increased wireless technology. And they say right here, this article in Digital Divide, Futurism, in the face of the coronavirus outbreak, students and workers alike are staying home and doing what they can remotely. But in America, many regions don't have affordable or high quality broadband service, if they have it at all. The result is that many are finding themselves cut off at a time when access to new information about the coronavirus is crucial. The problem is bringing to light critical social inequalities that come up that could have a serious impact on a kid's access to education. And they're saying there could be more than 163 million Americans. Come on, folks. We have 350 million Americans. They're saying more than half of Americans don't have access to internet. That is total malarkey. Has anybody seen the map of internet coverage, cell phone coverage in America? T-Mobile says, right? Or I don't know which company it is. They say, we got you covered. It's like practically the entire map, right? There's like a few places in the middle of the deserts where you don't have cell phone coverage. I have traveled cross country practically 3 times. And there have been spots where we don't have coverage, but most places across the country, there's coverage. So this is just a ridiculous cry for 5G. They go on to talk about how, the internet is too expensive and how there's this whole digital divide, and 12 million children are falling to some type of homework gap. All of a sudden now they can't do their homework. So they can go home and they can text each other and they can bully each other on on Instagram and they can post TikTok videos, but all of a sudden they can't do their homework because they don't have internet access. This is total baloney. This is an article that's trying to prep us to say we need more broadband, and they're trying to push for more wireless technology. And so this article really got me upset, and I said, wait a second, this is clear that they are going to be trying to push more wireless telecommunications on us during the spring break, and that's why this article is out. So we have to ask this question. Okay, so that's another reason why we have to ask. Now I'm going to share another article. Here's more evidence that they are pushing wireless technology on us. AT&T has a new technology called Project AirGig. And instead of building poles, 30-foot poles, 1 foot wide, 30-foot poles, and putting the small cell facilities on it, or instead of putting small cell facilities on telecommunications poles, posts where they have to then put a brain, they have to install this, like, I think it's probably like 4 feet by 6 foot sort of brain underneath that pole, either underground or sometimes they put it in a box. And so that's the small cell facility. That's what it comes with, right? Instead of doing that, they just want to put this egg-like thing, it's called AirGig, and clamp it onto the wires and have the 4/5G go through the wires. So they would use existing telephone poles, and so these are just in neighborhoods that right now they only have telephone poles. They don't apparently have internet, and so this is they have 500 patents and applications, and they want to turn existing power lines into transmitters. And they're saying that they can bring 4/5G anywhere in the country and even remote neighborhoods, as long as they have telephone poles. Now, I have to say that this sounds like, a decent idea. I mean, we all enjoy having internet. However, what this will do, and I have to get this down to Children's Health Defense, their words about this, is that AirGig will make it impossible to escape exposure to wireless radiation, even in our homes. AirGig will saturate our environment, every inch of it, with close proximity, high density radiation. The few relatively safe areas that still exist will quickly disappear. Not only will those who have become sick from wireless radiation have nowhere to escape, but many more are likely to experience immediate health impacts. And the reporter, not the reporter, but one of the presenters about AirGig admitted that no one has looked into the health effects of smart cities, and added that it's not her job to do so. And so what I want to point out once again, what this will do is it will create a smart grid, is what they're calling it. I don't like calling it smart, but I just call it the 5G grid. So it is a grid of radio frequencies or microwave radiation that will connect things. So it will connect, it will someday make it so that when you take milk out of if you're still buying milk, when you take milk out of your refrigerator, the refrigerator will know that you no longer have milk because you didn't put it back, right? So it'll tell your phone, and then your phone will tell you whenever you get close to Walmart, oh, Walmart is 1 block away. You don't have milk, you need to pick up milk. So it'll remind you. And then when you go into Walmart, it'll say your milk is on aisle 4 or whatever. And you go to Walmart, you take the milk out of the fridge, and that milk, the practice of taking that milk out of the fridge, they already have some facial recognition stuff going on at Walmart. They already have a lot of very smart technology going on there, because it helps them fill their shelves faster, right? So that refrigerator at Walmart will tell your phone that you got your milk. And it'll go into, it like everything will talk to each other, and your car will talk to you, your phone will talk to your phone, your security system will know that you're home because you've got your phone. Like there's this whole they're calling it Internet of Things, or a smart grid that will talk to each other. So that is the plan. So when we talk about 5G, we're not just talking about T-Mobile's 5G, right? That's an upgraded 4G. That's not what we're talking about. This Internet of Things, this smart grid, this ability for them to collect our data. That's what this is about. Okay, they want to know what we're buying it, when we're buying it, how much we're buying it, what we no longer have anymore. They want to be able to remind us to go buy stuff. They want all of that data. So what 5G really means is constant radiation, because that's what these things are going to be on poles, right outside of our homes, and surveillance. That's what this means. Those two things, you want to communicate that to your friends and family. 5G does not just mean downloads of videos from 8 seconds to 4 seconds. Okay, that's very nice and all, but is it worth constant radiation and constant surveillance? I don't think so. I don't want the government or corporations to have all of this information on me. I don't want to have all types of smart refrigerators and, you know, appliances in my home. I don't want the radiation all the time, and I don't think you do either. So that's why we're working our tails off on this to let everybody know what's happening. So this is what's coming down the pike. Now, the only good thing about this, well, I want to say one more bad thing before I get into the only good thing about this. One other bad thing is look at this little thing that's on the wires. What do birds do? They build nests. What's going to happen? They're going to build a nest on top of this thing and it's going to start a fire. This has already happened on top of the smart cell facilities in California. You know, remember the fires in Malibu? That's been attributed to a small cell, a macro, you know, antenna thing where birds built a nest on top of it. So this is a fire hazard, folks. And the last thing that we need in this day and age right now with climate change is more fire hazards. We do not need birds building nests on top of these things. So, or landing on them, you know, weight, you know, all that kind of stuff. So the only good thing, now I want to get into the good thing about this. The only good thing about this is that this shows that their technology is changing and that they want to put this in within a year. And this shows us that the technology for the small cell facilities where they want to put poles up all over our city doesn't make any sense, right? It would not allow for prudent city planning. It wouldn't show prudent city planning if they went ahead and approved these poles to be put up all over the place with small cell facilities on them. And then a year later, ta-da, we've got Project AirGig, right? And now all these poles are no longer needed. So you have a very good case in saying, look, there's new technology that's coming down the pike. I don't know how safe it is, but they're saying this Project AirGig, they can just attach it to the power lines. So why do we need these poles put up all over the place and these brains, you know, these 6 foot by 4 foot boxes that have to either be put on a sidewalk or dug in underneath the sidewalk and installed right underneath the concrete? Why are we going to do that if 1 year from now we can just have this Project AirGig thing, if this works out? Like, why do we want to have defunct technology and these big ugly poles lowering our property value, increasing fire hazards, you know, irradiating us, you know, all that? Like, why do we want to have defunct technology? Okay, so everybody understands that this shows us that the current technology that they're trying to propose right now doesn't make sense to approve it.
How can we find this article to post to our groups, our local groups, to alert people to it? What is this from? Oh, it's from the Children's Health Defense.
Yes, yeah, Children's Health Defense is doing an excellent job because they've hired a lawyer, and you know, they have a team that's focused just on 5G now too. So they've also been working on Monsanto Roundup, and they also work on Health Freedom, but they've taken on 5G as well. So we've partnered.
I knew, and as I said, I've heard Daphne. She's great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Daphne's great. Yeah, she's really great.
I'll find it there. Oh, it's by Daphne, that article. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And my apologies if I didn't say her last name right. But yeah, she's excellent and very, very smart and great to work with. So
I have to teach in a little bit. So I just want to let you know I appreciate everything you're saying, and I'm listening, and I'm going to opt out at 4:40.
Great. Okay, I'm going to stop in just a second. We're going to talk more, and I'm going to. Were you the one that wanted to say something? No, maybe it was somebody else. Oh, it was you. Okay. Well, do you want to say something now? Was there something else that you wanted to say, Bonnie? No. Okay. I just wanted to check in if there's anybody that wanted to say something that I didn't take up all the time. Let's see. There is another topic that I want to talk about, but I want to check the comments. Yes, Carla, I agree. We need to get money out of politics. Is there a legal submission to stop this in California? That is a good question. The letter that we have presented to you to send, a lawyer has weighed in on that and put in the legal government, you know, the rules and all of that stuff. So there is legal wording in that, and you can use that right now. I don't think there's any legal submission to stop this in California right now. That's a good question. and one that I can ask Children's Health Defense. I don't think there can be until we have proof that there are orders, right? So that's why we need you to go ask your school district, is this happening? And if so, I want to be notified, right? What exactly is happening? We need more evidence that there are plans to set this up or that it has been set up. Mark is saying, check out the education code 35145.5. It's the intent of the legislator that members of the public be able to place matters directly related to school district business on the agenda of school district governing board meetings. Great. Every agenda for regular meetings shall provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the governing board on any item of interest to the public before or during the governing board's consideration of the item that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the governing board. Governing boards shall adopt reasonable regulations to ensure that this intent is carried out, and the regulations may specify reasonable procedures to ensure the proper functioning of governing board meetings. Yes, and what that means is that if you go to your board meeting, which I doubt they're holding right now because everybody's on lockdown, but you should have 3 minutes at the beginning to be able to talk about whatever subject you want, whether it's on the agenda or not. Now, if it is on the agenda, you would you would talk during that time instead, right? But if it's not on the agenda, you should have 3 minutes to be able to talk about whatever you want. Now, I would have you know that they will only give you 3 minutes, right? That if they say you have 3 minutes, they will cut you off. So your job is to practice what you want to say and make sure that you can cover it within 3 minutes so that you're not feeling left flustered and you're effective in communicating what you have to say. And I have on my podcast, Unstoppable with Zen Honeycutt, I have a whole episode just on how to be effective in presenting within 3 minutes. So I'd love it if you guys would listen to that. It's called Unstoppable with Zen Honeycutt, and it's on Spotify and Anchor and all the different podcasts out there. Okay, so now Carl is asking about the satellites, and so I want to get to that. Okay, that is what I'm going to share about next. This is, this is very frightening, folks. But I don't want people to get into despair, because that doesn't help us at all. Okay, that does not help anybody to get into despair about this. But the FCC, which we know is a captured agency, the head of the FCC is the former lawyer or legal person from Verizon, right? And the FCC has approved SpaceX, which is owned by Elon Musk, to deploy up to 1 million small antennas for Starlink internet network. Now, the Starlink internet network is just the one that's owned by Elon Musk. This is just his approval. What I want to point out is that Amazon wants to put satellites up in the air. Facebook wants to, Google wants to, many other companies want to do this. The UK, China, Russia, they're all on a race to put up thousands of satellites in our skies to beam down, for internet connection and gathering data. So the main key points on this article is that the FCC authorizes SpaceX to begin rolling out as many as 1 million ground antenna for Starlink internet project. Starlink has an ambitious network of 12,000 satellites that SpaceX wants to use to provide high-speed internet to anyone, anywhere in the world. And that 12,000 is just what they've been approved for. They want to do 50,000. It looks like a UFO on a stick, says Elon Musk, of these ground antenna in an interview this month. So it is it's 19 inches across, and it's a antenna that, where the satellite will beam down power to it, and then it will radiate out the microwave radiation. And they're trying to get funding for this. And if you look at any type of stocks, you know how the stock is crashing right now. I mean, if Trump sneezes, everybody sells their stock. It's ridiculous what's happening right now. So if you're looking at what to buy, a lot of these I don't know about hedge funds, but these, people that recommend what to buy are recommending the Internet of Things. They're recommending this type of technology. So I really want you to talk to any investors in your lives, your uncles or fathers or grandmothers or whoever that's investing, and please urge them not to invest in this, because this technology will blanket the earth in microwave radiation, and it will harm us, and it will harm the bees and the birds and the butterflies migrating these beams that will be coming down. I mean, just imagine, you know, the butterflies and bees and frogs and everything, and human beings. Now, some people are saying that it is the power that's emitted is less, and so that this is, you know, I don't even want to say that it's safer than small cells, you know, or 4/5G, because I don't believe it is, but the frequencies that come out of it are about 14.5, I think it's gigahertz, and it's what's coming out of gigahertz, and what comes out of the LTE network right now is 6 gigahertz. So it's twice it's a different thing. That's not power, that's frequency. But I'm just saying that these frequencies are still coming out, right? And so if the frequencies are there, it's kind of like if you turn on the radio and you hear music, you can hear it if it's low and you can hear it if it's high, right? And either way, if you're somebody that, if hearing music were to make you sick, you would still be hearing music. You see my point? You're still getting exposure to the frequencies. And so the point of this right now, their focus, not the point, but the focus of this SpaceX project is to bring internet to the 3% that does not have internet. So they're going to be putting it in very rural areas, and in very third world countries and very rural areas. So you don't, this is not a concern for you in your city right now. The concern for you in your city right now is those 4G, 5G small cell facilities that they're putting up all over the place. And it will eventually be AirGig, right? This one. So, however, I do not believe, and I don't think anybody else believes, that Starlink and SpaceX is intended just for the rural, poor communities, right? They're going to want this to be all across the earth, and they're going to want to connect everything. They want to be connecting all of the data that we have, and having our cars talk to our houses and our phones, and, you know, all of that stuff. So this is a very big deal that they have approved this, and our current administration, I'm sorry to say, is pushing this. Trump is a very big proponent of 5G and has allowed $9.7 billion for the rural community, for farmers, so that they can have 5G when they're farming, and they can use tractors that are connected to 5G, and they can, they're using it to like measure the humidity in the air and the temperature and the wind blowing, so that they can have precision farming, precision agriculture, they're calling it. And why do they need that? Well, they only need that if they're doing GMO farming and they're using chemicals, right? That GMOs that are created to resist chemicals. So this is all connected. GMO farming is connected with 5G. You know, big oil is connected with all of this. I mean, all these big companies are, you know, fracking, all that stuff. Everything is all connected to this. So we need to be very aware of who we support, because if we support candidates that receive funding from companies, you know, industries like this, they will make decisions based on what's best for those industries and not what is based on what's best for our health. Yes, Bonnie. Wait, I need you to unmute. I'm going to unmute you.
I just want to say I have to go because I have to teach a student, but thank you
Okay.
so much. I really enjoyed listening to, well, I didn't enjoy it, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got the information and I learned a lot. So thanks so much. I really
Thanks for being on. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Is there anything else, anybody else that wants to share anything about what's going on? Oh, okay. Mark says it's not just 3 minutes. Okay, that was my experience. I only had 3 minutes, but you asked your school board for time on the agenda and they gave you 17 minutes. Oh, you made a whole slide presentation. Yes, if you ask ahead of time and you get on the agenda, you absolutely can get more time. But if you just show up at the meeting and you fill out the little card to speak, in my experience, in most cases, you only get 3 minutes and they will cut you off. They will stop you from speaking more. Some places only give 2 minutes too. But if you ask ahead of time to get on the agenda and give you time, then yes, you can do a whole slide presentation. You can also do that for your city council and your city planning commissioners. You can ask for a 1 hour study session. and then you could do a whole presentation on 5G. And we have a presentation on momsacrossamerica.org. I'm sure other websites like 5G Crisis and ehtrust.org have presentations, or at least information that you can use. And so you can do a whole 1 hour presentation if they grant you permission to do that. Let's see. So let's see. I can't see if it's Jamie Tucker or Jody Nelson that's working with people if they need help with 5G in their local governments. I'll need you Jamie, to be more clear.
Oh, yeah.
It's Jody Nelson? Okay.
It's Jamie. It's
okay.
Jamie. So, yeah, I'm in Danville. We've actually had a lot of, I'll just say, interaction with our wonderful local government, our town council. We're now in a situation where we had actually appealed a site, and so we were successful, and then Verizon turned around and sued the town of Danville. And we knew, my group, we're part of Danville Citizens for Responsible Growth. We do not trust our council to represent us. And so we actually filed a motion to intervene in the lawsuit, and it was granted immediately, basically without a hearing. So we thought, that's great. We have a seat at the table. We're going to hold them accountable. We're not going to let Verizon just walk over our town and our people. And, you know, everything seemed like it was going to go in that direction. We walked into the courtroom. The judge had already made a tentative ruling to award Verizon their motion to dismiss. So basically, the judge just overrode the town of Danville's decision to deny a site to Verizon. So the fact that a judge can do that is something to be very concerned about.
Yes.
And so we're still kind of in the process. That final ruling has not been issued. We're trying to get a stay because of the 9th district decision is probably going to come out in a couple months. But the town of Danville is basically saying to Verizon and the judge, like, let's just get this over with and get you started.
Yes, right. And they're doing that because of the current FCC guidelines, which, or the 1996 Telecommunications Act, which does not allow for local municipalities to refuse this. That's why the judge is doing it. He has legal grounds for doing that. He's not just doing that because
our case is a little bit different because so there are things that you are allowed to deny a site based on, like if there are other preferred locations that make more sense, if there's an aesthetic aspect to it, if you incommode the sidewalk or public way. So there are different ways you can kind of get around it. And so that's how we won the appeal, because they said, well, the ordinance has a setback of X number of feet, and this is less than that, so you can't do it. But the judge basically said, hey, town of Danville, I don't care what your ordinance says. I'm just going to give Verizon what they want. So I think the judges have, unfortunately, they're part of this whole thing that's happening to us, the people, and our families and our children. And it's just a big force to go up against. So I just want to tell people to be vigilant, reach out to each other for strategic and tactical approaches. There's cease and desist orders that can be written. There's this writ of mandamus that can be used. So there's other ways.
What is that last one that you just said?
It's called a writ of mandamus, and I can give you the procedure.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Judy Bruce. Yeah, it's basically you're serving your local authority with saying I'm protecting myself, and you don't have the right to usurp my own civil rights and rights to health, property, etc.
Right.
It's a very difficult process.
Yeah, it sounds like it has not been super successful because I've never heard of it before. But I mean, I don't know everything.
Judy Bruce is piloting it in Southern California. She's put a whole booklet together about the steps that you need to take, so I can share that with you.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to add one more point on the school side of things. So I did reach out to the superintendent of San Ramon Valley Unified School District, and the guy was a total jerk, to be candid, and basically said, well, I'll have our facilities group call you as to what each school/contract is. And I'm thinking, contract? So I think what they're doing is they're setting up contracts with all wireless providers to guarantee that they will only use wireless, not wired connectivity. And I have some evidence of that, so
Yeah.
pretty scary.
Yeah, and the problem with that is that the monies that they were granted were meant for underground cables. And that's where they got money for that. And they've been using that as a giant scam and a fraud. And the regulators just won that lawsuit, by the way, last week. They won. And so people are going to be able to use that in order to stop this from happening. If a city chooses to use it, they will be able to use that, the outcome of that lawsuit. And there's strategies that will be coming out soon, which are pending. There are lawyers that are working on that, and will be able to support the community with how you can use that lawsuit in order to protect your community. And when you mentioned District 9, I just want to say, for the people on the call that don't know what that is, there's been a lawsuit from some cities. I don't know if anybody knows which cities they are. You can chime in. But what they're trying to do is say, basically, we have the right of local authority. They're trying to reclaim their local authority. So that's a very important lawsuit. There's also two. So Simi Valley, okay, great, is one of them. And there's two other lawsuits, one from AH Trust and one from Children's Health Defense against the FCC. And there's two bills, HR 530 and S 2012, which are been presented by our legislators, California legislators, by the way. So and good on everybody who elected them, you know, they are suing the or put bills forth to the FCC to update the FCC regulations, and they are calling to include regaining local authorities over you know, the installation of telecommunications. So if these bills and lawsuits went through, okay, so we're seeing for Mandy, the other lawsuits are ones with Thousand Oak and two in Topanga, and one in Simi Valley. So if these lawsuits or bills go through, then everything changes for us. And so this is why the telecommunications companies are pushing so hard right now, because they want to get their technology in now before these lawsuits and bills gain any ground. So our job is to delay them as long as possible until these lawsuits and bills are resolved. So that is your main job right now. I want to really assert to people, our job is not just to say, okay, well, instead of a 10-foot setback, I want a 500-foot setback. That's playing their game. I want you to delay. Just keep finding reasons to delay. Don't even start playing their game with the setbacks. As long as you can't put that off, as long as you possibly can. Contra Costa County is part of the suit too. So, okay, thank you, Mandy. I really appreciate it. And Jody, you had your hand raised. You wanted to say something? Or was that from before?
Nelson. You know, I work for, I am the co-founder of East Bay Neighborhoods for Responsible Technology.
Neighborhoods for?
East Bay Neighborhoods for Responsible Technology.
East Bay, okay, great.
I work within Contra Costa County, and I've been, it is my observation that if you can get to the city before telecom has, you have a much better outcome. Mm-hmm. My point to you is, in Contra Costa County, they had already made the decision before they even notified us. They had been in the talks with Verizon for over 2 years before we were even given a notice.
Yep.
So, and that is one thing. Another better outcome is if you can find somebody within your county, your city, whatever jurisdiction you're in, that will side with you, that buys into this. It's huge, because once you have buy-in, and they can start to regulate this in their own way. And I think Jamie alluded to some of those ways. Mostly they are aesthetics, but there are cities, there are ways of mitigating this. So I agree with your whole thing about delay. Delay is huge. It is our friend, but a lot of cities have found ways, and this is going to be a delay by using tactics like 500-foot setbacks or whatever. If the city put a 500-foot setback, that would eliminate most of these from any area. Think about it. At 500 feet, how many houses are there in a 500-foot radius? A lot. You wouldn't be able to put these in neighborhoods. So that is a way of delaying. But I mean, you make a really valid point in the fact of delaying is really the biggest thing.
Well, I'm just concerned because if there is a 500-foot setback, they can merely turn up the power, right? So versus a 500-foot setback versus a 100-foot setback or a 35-foot setback, the amount of radiation that a person is going to be experiencing in that home that's 500 feet away from that pole could be just as high as if the pole was 12 feet away, because they can turn up the power.
That could be, but I would assume too that that the levels would go up, and the possibility of exceeding the FCC limit, which would be kind of hard because, as you know, our limits are 1,000 times higher than many countries. That would be
and the amount, the limit is actually 5 billion times higher than is needed for five bars on our phones.
Right.
The amount that can come out of the poles. Yeah, that chart is on our website, momsacrossamerica.org.
Yeah.
Under action and under ordinances under 5G.
Which is irrelevant under what the FCC's levels are right now. That's an irrelevant point to them, not to us.
Right. Yes. Yeah, because they think that it's not, they're claiming that it's not harmful, but their guidelines are not based on health. So it's completely unfounded. So,
right.
Yeah. I can see that it can be seen as a delay tactic because it makes it harder for them to put in, to put them in. However, I have found in my experience with, being an activist, that whenever you ask for something, you always get less than that, right? So as soon as you get to the table, I mean, look, with GMO labeling, all we asked for was for 6 words on the package saying, produced with genetic engineering. What do we get? We got less than that. We didn't get that. If we had asked for a ban, we might have at least gotten labeling. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right?
And I followed the GMO thing very closely. So
be very careful about what you ask for. Costa Mesa asked for, I think, 100-foot setback and they got 35. They might have asked for 500-foot setback, but they got 35 feet, and they gave 100 feet to public art, but only 35 feet to daycare centers and people's homes.
Yeah, no, you're making some really good points.
So if you cannot even start that conversation, and there's other things you can do, like for instance, require insurance. Say them, listen, if these poles are so safe and they want to put them in our towns, okay, but they need insurance. And guess what? They can't get insurance.
Those are all part of a lot of things that cities have done that successfully. So that is one of the things that has been implemented. Unfortunately, when you go across some of these cities, they've already made their minds up that, quote, our hands are tied.
Right.
And a lot of them feel that way. And I think sometimes honestly, and sometimes I think it's just because they're lazy, because they, like I said, Contra Costa County had been working on this for over 2 years. They were done. They wanted it off their plate.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So our job is to convince them that their hands are not tied, or even if they want to believe that their hands are tied, that if they sit there and do nothing, either way, there will be a result. And the result is that the lawsuits from the residents will be much more impactful on the city than the lawsuits from the telecommunications companies. That's what we're asserting.
Yeah,
and that
they didn't care. We told them that they didn't care. I mean, this has just been my experience, and
well, it's the experience of many people. Yes, but they're going to start seeing as more residents.
I agree.
They will start seeing. Yeah.
And that's why I like Daphne Tackover's. She has her own poster showing the first effects that will happen from microwave sickness. Mm-hmm. I think that is one of the most brilliant things ever made, because that's what people are going to start experiencing. They're not going to get brain cancer. They're going to start having tinnitus and headaches and nosebleeds. Those are the kinds of things that they're going to start experiencing once this is put in. And you're right, the lawsuits are going to start happening.
Yep. Yeah, and there's also the issue of the American Disability Act and people who have electromagnetic sensitivity that is a recognized disability by the American Disabilities Act, and the city is required, you know, according to the laws, to accommodate those people. And so so that is another tactic that you really must present to your cities. And
I have done that extensively and actually worked with a person who is an advocate, an ADA advocate, and you would laugh at how my county actually does not believe that they have a responsibility. The responsibility is on variety. I mean, literally, you're right. And most cities are not being successful because they think that they have done it. If they have cleared the way for a wheelchair to access the site, then they have done their due diligence on ADA.
Right. That, yeah, they're just considering the wheelchair access.
Exactly.
They're not considering electromagnetic sensitivity. Yeah. So there's a huge amount of wait, I'm going to screen share so I can show people where I'm going. There's a huge amount of education that we need to require. And somebody just asked me, are you telling people not to ask for setbacks? And I want to be clear about that. So I just went to momsacrossamerica.org and I clicked on action right here, stop 5G. Okay. And whoops, no, 5G, stop 5G. And I'm coming to this page, the initiatives, and this has 6 steps to take. And it has some data and information. What can you do? And it has 6 steps. So this is like a basic, getting started type of page. And I want to point out that EH Trust, Environmental Health Trust, and 5G Crisis, and We Are the Evidence, the websites that have been doing this for way longer than I have way more information. This is just a basic one for people who say, oh, Moms Across America is talking about this now. Well, what do I do? So this is our basic information on our page. So on our top 10 talking points, I point out in here that our requested course of action is, it doesn't even talk about setbacks, right? In the get-go, because when my point about is that once you sit down and start talking about setbacks, you are playing their game. It's like you've entered into the football field where they have set the rules and they have said, you have to approve this. You have to allow this in your city. What I'm saying is, no, we're not even getting onto that field. We're not saying we have to allow this into a city. I don't believe that a city should be forced to have technology that the citizens do not want. I believe we have enough of the technology. We don't need to ruin our aesthetics. We don't need to ruin our health. And I'm not even going to step onto that field to start talking about that yet. Okay, I'm not going to do that yet. My first course of action is to ask the cities to obtain a tolling agreement or to place a moratorium or to just delay, right? Like just delay the meeting on current and future applications and construction until the rulings of the lawsuits against the FCC are released and the 2 bills which may abolish the FCC guidelines are voted upon. And now this is the first one is a must. The second one, bills can take forever. So we know that's going to take a little bit longer, but the first one is a must, okay? And the rulings or regulations are included in the updated ordinance for underground telecommunication utilities. So here's the whole point. How can they do prudent city planning if within 5 months, there's a lawsuit which is going to be resolved, which could change all of the rules? It doesn't make any sense for them to go ahead and approve any applications right now if all of the regulations are going to change within 5 months anyway. It's not in the best interest of our city. It's not in the best interest of our residents. So it is an incredibly reasonable ask to ask them to delay any decision-making for another 5 or 6 months or even a year until these lawsuits and bills are resolved upon. That is the tactic that I'm asking you to take on, not to sit down and say, okay, well, instead of 100 feet, let's do a 500-foot setback. Because then you're playing their game. You're passing the ball. You're giving them the opportunity to go ahead and do setbacks and start planning and all of that. And I think that if you can delay long enough, if we can delay 6 months, that we have a pretty darn good shot of not being forced to have this technology in our cities. But the only cities that will be successful at that are the ones that don't have ordinances which allow it. If your ordinance allows it, you have to allow it. If you can delay, then you have the chance of not having this in your city. And I am not a huge fan of, and so in here it has the, you know, the main points that you can use in a meeting with your people. And at the bottom, I have Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C, and we have this whole, you know, our city's hands are not tied point, and a ruling and all this type of stuff. So it's pretty extensive. I'm not saying that this way is the only way, okay? I'm just asking you to please try a way which does not give them the upper hand right off the bat, okay? It's not playing their game. So in here, I have Plan A and Plan B is clear. Plan A and Plan B, and Plan C is when you start talking about setbacks. Okay, and by the way, there's an example from Elk Grove in here now. We've put that up. And in Plan C, you do talk about setbacks. Here's distances that you can talk about that other cities have. And there's also the level of power that comes out of the pole. You can ask them to regulate that. But that means that those poles are going up, right? And they're going to be in your city, in your town, and they will be emitting constant microwave radiation. They will be able to surveil people in your town, and they may turn the power up to be 5 billion times higher than what is needed for cell phone service. So any other questions about that? Is that clear, Lisa, about setbacks? Eventually, you may have to do that, but only if you start talking about that before these lawsuits are settled. Okay. Post the item I spoke of from Daphne Tackover. I'm not sure which one you mean, Eileen. There were 3 different articles that we posted, and 2 of them were for Children's Health Defense. One was on AirGig, and oh, I know. Jamie spoke of the one that talked about the health effects. Yeah, the health effects you're going to face. I don't have that one, but I would imagine it would be on wearetheevidence.org. She is electromagnetic sensitive, and so they have all kinds of data, you know.
Oh yeah, that was Jody had done that, not me.
Yeah, yeah.
Jody
Okay, so
mentioned that, but yeah.
That's it's probably going to be on wearetheevidence.org.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 6:16 now. Usually I go till right about now, and so I'm gonna probably have to log off. But are there any other questions before we go?
Hi, Brownie.
What's that? Did you say something? What about the ADA request of setbacks? Okay, so the ADA does not. That's a different issue than setbacks. But the ADA issue, how that ties in is usually when they do agree, they have an ordinance and there is an agreement, approval to put up a pole. What you can ask your city to include in your ordinance is that within 1,000 feet of where that pole is, or facility, small cell facility is going to be put up, that you make a request that it's in the ordinance that within 1,000 feet, every, I would say occupant, not resident, because an occupant of a building could be an employee, right? In a building, every occupant of any building within 1,000 feet is notified that this pole is going to go up, that this small cell facility is going to go up, and they are given the opportunity to apply for accommodation. And there's a certain form that they fill out, and they say, you know, I am electromagnetic sensitive. I'm asking for accommodation. I'm asking for this pole not to be put up in this area. And I don't know how much time they have to do that, but they should have time to do that. And then the city is then required to sit down and have a meaningful discussion with them. And that stops the shot clock. And what that means is a certain amount of time that the city has to approve an application. Or it stops the process, you know, so it'll slow things down, and they do have to meet with a person, and the city can refuse an application based on the American Disability Act. So if there is a person with electromagnetic sensitivity within 1,000 feet, they can say, okay, well, we cannot put the pole up there. We have to accommodate this person. So that is something that you can use. And my understanding is that that person does not have to have like reams of paperwork from a doctor saying that they are electromagnetic sensitive, that it just, that, and I'm not saying you can just say that, you know, you want to be honest, but if a person experiences those things, my understanding is that you don't have to have all kinds of medical documentations to show that. You can simply have, you know, the conversation with them, and you can tell them how you feel and what happens to you. And I probably would help if you had a journal and some evidence, or, you know, some testimonials from some friends or whatever, you know, you want to think about what type of information that you could provide. But my understanding is you don't have to have like a written note or something. Let's see, what if there's no infrastructure in place to you submit an ADA? So you can get a form, I believe, from your city as for a request for accommodation. What other ADA conditions can be exacerbated by radio frequency? What about other ADA conditions? I don't know about that. I would suggest going on to wearetheevidence.org to look at more information around the ADA conditions. I would guess that by other conditions, I mean, things like heart attacks or strokes, or all of those have been shown to be exacerbated. So, you know, heart conditions or other conditions. So I would guess that you could ask for accommodation based on heart conditions or other types of, you know, immune condition. Yeah, autoimmune and yes, thank you, autoimmune and chronic disease conditions. But I'm not sure about that. But it would make sense, seeing it as there's scientific evidence to show that it does compromise the immune system. It's also a really good reason to turn this stuff off right now, folks, too. You know, some of the areas that have had an extensive impact from COVID-19 are areas that have 5G all over the place. You know, the Wuhan and Seattle, and I'm not sure about New York. I'm pretty sure New York has it up. Yeah, okay, yeah. And there's an area in Georgia, which is now being impacted too, that has it. Italy, of course, has it. I think the extensive impact in Iran was because the whole government was just simply in denial. They did absolutely nothing about it for a long time. Iran does not have 5G, but they are looking at testing it out. So yeah, so there's a lot of health conditions. Thank you, Carla. Appreciate it. And I'm going to get going now because I do need to rest, but I want to leave us with the request to please not get into despair. Okay, even though there's an approval of like 1 million of these satellite things to be put into rural areas, even though you know, some cities are not winning lawsuits, even though there are, you know, there's this onslaught of technology in our countries, every single breakdown is an opportunity for a breakthrough. And what I see this as is a huge opportunity for people to get involved in their local neighborhood. Thank you. I think it's Maya from Michigan. I appreciate collaborating with you too. This is a huge opportunity for people to coordinate and get together. Yes, crisis is, in Chinese, the symbol is a combination of danger and opportunity. That's what a crisis is. And so we have an opportunity to get together, not physically right now, but coordinate and organize and get on phone calls and Zoom calls and things like this, organize, strategize, and take action in a way that will strengthen our communities. Like we really will be. We'll be stronger because of this. And we will value our communities more for this. I can't tell you. I mean, I've driven all over my city now and passed out flyers, you know, to let them know about the city council meeting coming up, and particularly in the areas where they have proposed polls. And I've gotten to know people that I never would have gotten to know before. I've gotten to appreciate my city. I've gotten to drive around and say, wow, there's this whole area where they don't have any telephone poles up. All of their telecommunications is underground. They respect the aesthetics of our city so much. Beautiful tree-lined streets, beautiful flowers, no telephone poles. I do not want 5G to come in and mess that up. I'm like becoming more devoted and loyal to my city. And you know, and this is a city that I was thinking, I was finding something wrong with it. And I was trying to find a way to leave and go move somebody where I have more land to grow food and all that. And now I'm finding myself being like, no, wait a second, this is a pretty darn good city, and I'm going to grow food as as best I can. And I'm squeezing every single inch out of my backyard to grow food now, right? Like I am hunkering down. I just planted an avocado tree. It takes another 4 years to get fruit out of that, right? So, you will get creative in times of crisis. You can get creative. The frustration is the mother of invention. So I want to ask everybody to set aside any thoughts of, we can't do this. This just is the way it is. Our hands are tied. We're going to lose. It's too big. All of that stuff. I get that you're going to think that, but then take it and just set it aside and say, okay, what do I need to do to organize and strategize and take action in order to have this go the way I want it to go? Just be in the inquiry. Just question. Everything I've said tonight, that's just stuff that people and I have come up with. It may not be the answer. You may have a way better answer for how to do this. If you just get in the inquiry and just start wondering and what you could do about this. Have lunch with your city council planner. I don't know, there may be, maybe you don't have lunch with them right now. You know what I mean? Like there might be other creative ways, bake them something, or eventually when we can all see each other, make them a song. I don't know. I know these one ladies that made somebody a quilt, right? And they were able to get a meeting with their senator because they made them a quilt. So yeah, my website is momsacrossamerica.org, and under action, the tab is Stop 5G. And I would like everybody, I think we're gonna rebrand that page pretty soon. I'd like everybody to consider putting Stop 5G grids instead of just Stop 5G, because what the feedback we're getting is, well, T-Mobile already has 5G up everywhere. And so they're like, too late. And they just give up. Or they say, well, if we stop 5G, does that mean I have to give up my phone? It says 5G right on my phone, right? So we have a messaging problem, folks. We need to get across that what we're talking about is this grid, this smart grid, this Internet of Things. When I tried Internet of Things, people didn't really get it. So I think and network sounds too positive, right? So how do you guys feel about Stop 5G grids? Do you guys like that? And then the tagline would be, we do not consent to the radiation and surveillance of our families. We do not consent.
I like it.
You like that? To the radiation and
I
surveillance
really like it.
of our families. Okay, good. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
I have a concern with the surveillance part of it, because even though I agree with what you're saying,
Yep.
I found that a lot of people that aren't involved in this, when you start talking about surveillance, it turns them off.
Well, that's why we want to bring in the freedom issue, but people don't like that.
I understand that, but it makes them think that you're more of a tinfoil. They just roll their eyes. And I remember having this conversation back and forth with a lot of different people, and I don't have a problem with it. I was dead on to it, but I had pushback from a lot of other people. And so just raising that as
I appreciate that. I mean, our main concern is the health of, the radiation. So we could just stay with that. But I want to, if there's another way to say data collecting, or
yes, I agree.
Something like, if there's some other way to say that, I'm fine with a euphemism for that, another word, but I want to point out that their intention is to collect all this data. That's why their intention's not to radiate us, actually. That's a side effect, but we disagree with that.
The whole intent of this infrastructure is it's a multi-billion-dollar industry to collect data, and they want in on it. And then,
yes.
And then the video streaming, of course, they want to be the new Disney. But you're right, it is, and being able to relay that to people is a very important part of this. I think I agree.
Okay, well, I'll do another poll, asking people about that, what they feel. I like to keep things short. I always like one word instead of two words, so I tend to lean towards the shortest word. But I
have to tell you, I wish you would have been around when I got into this a couple of years ago, because when I first got into this, I was like Googling, how do I even start a group? How do I reach out to? I was not an activist. And so the reason why I'm interested in what you're doing is you're not giving me any new information. What you're doing is you're formatting this in a way that your experience from past things have given you. And we don't have that, and we need that. So I truly appreciate what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate all the people who have taught me what I've learned over the past month that I was completely clueless about, right? I hate to use the word clueless insult, but so many people that have been doing this for so long have taught me a lot of information, and I have the ability to support people in organizing. So I don't see myself as a 5G expert at all. I always refer to other people. I see my role more as organizing, supporting people in organizing and how to get started.
Well, you're doing a pretty darn good job for having not having the background of years of experience. You're doing a pretty darn good job on that. But your organizational skills are, I think, really needed in this fight.
Well, I think the best way to get organized, people always ask me, how do I get involved? My answer is always, the best way to get involved is to ask other people to get involved. So that's why our first request on our website is to please reach out and find other people. And if there isn't one, start a group. And so instead of starting a Stop 5G group, that's why I'm putting out this, feeling you guys out. What about Stop 5G grids? And then having the tagline on the Facebook page, we do not consent to the radiation. And I don't know, maybe data gathering of our family's information. I don't know, that may be too long, or surveillance, right? So I think that we need to start pages, and we need to groups, and we need to get together as soon as we can get together. I think COVID-19 might help us in the sense that city council meetings might be delayed for, or public hearings about certain issues might be delayed for a couple months. That's a possibility. Yes, Janet, this is recorded, and you can review it or share it afterwards on momsacrossamerica.org. Under events, you can find the tab that says Moms Connect Call. And Jamie, thank you for holding a preppers conference call for disaster preparedness. That's awesome. We want to go over to your call. That's so great. Can I share? I got a great tip from my sister. She doesn't want to buy a gun, so she got hornet spray. You can shoot that from 30 feet away if you feel the need to protect your family. I was like, that's a great tip. So, maybe somebody will sleep better being a prepper.
And can I add one quick thing?
Yes.
Do you mind if I add one quick thing? Those of us, who believe in the power of prayer, let's use that as a strategy as well in this wonderful, worthy cause. This is so crucial for our survival, for our safety and our health and our loved ones. I mean, we all want what's best for one another. So yes, we can't underestimate the power of prayer.
Absolutely. And prayer and meditation, whatever you use, has you focus on what you want. And when you focus on what you want, you raise your frequency levels. We all have frequency, right? And you raise your frequency levels to levels in the universe that connect with you, and what you are trying to manifest or praying for is much more likely to show up. And I know that sounds woo-woo, but if you read a book by it's called Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza, you'll really get what I'm saying on a scientific level. Like, there's actually scientific data on this, on measuring the brain waves and raising your frequency levels. And meditation and prayer does that. It's absolutely what happens. So you can focus on what you want to create. You can focus on, if you want to use the word manifesting that, or having, the world, the universe conspire with you on that. I always say, when you do what you love, all the world conspires with you. Yeah. So focus on what you love, focus on what you want, focus on the good things. And yes, Italy is singing, right? They're focusing on the good things.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
Create health. Yes, they will create health and connection in their neighborhoods. So, okay, I'm going to sign off, but if you would like more information on some of the things that I've touched on, I do go on some of these into more detail. It's just a half-an-hour podcast. I do it about 4 times a week. It's called Unstoppable with Zen Honeycutt. I've been doing it for almost a month now, and I go into particular issues about 5G. And today's podcast was was what we talked about today. And so you can share it with your friends and family. It's easier. They're much more likely to listen to a podcast than they are to watch this hour and 15-minute long thing that we just had, right? Some people might, but a podcast is easier for them to sort of process. So you may want to share that. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate you being on tonight. Thank you for your excellent questions.
Thank you, Zen.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Bless you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You too.